What's up, RBC? So we have the legend Philine joining us today, and I am going to do my best to keep on track and make sure I get those squirrels at bay with using my little titles here to keep me on track here. So we're going to talk with her a little bit about her experience with racing, how she got into cycling, and then how she got connected to RBC. And then after that, we'll do a short segment where I'm just doing something called In the Lab, where we're just reviewing things where, I don't have any reason to be pitching anything. It's just stuff that I've used and enjoyed on the bike that I think that you might find helpful. So we'll bring her on right now. What's up, Philine?
Hey, Andrew.
Living the dream. Woo! So how was it to watch your own intro video backstage? Kind of weird, huh?
It was an experience.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, taking some time out and talking to the RBC peeps. So we'll get right into it. So how did you get into cycling?
Yeah. So people think I'm still very young, but I'm actually now 5 years out of college. And in college, the biggest part of my college experience was being on the crew team, rowing competitively. I love that. But then when it was time to come back to the Inland Empire, there's not really a lot of water here, not much opportunity for rowing. So I had to kind of find some other outlet for my competitive spirit. And I actually started with triathlons. I did swim and track back in high school. So I thought it would be easy just to throw in a little bike in the middle. And voila, it's a triathlon. And so I did that for about a year. And then I actually met my now husband at a bike store, and he really immersed me into the world of bicycles, and everything else was in the past. So that's really how I narrowed down myself into cycling. Also, the pandemic helped. No gyms, no pools. So just being outside riding my bike.
Just you and your two-wheeled friend, Roland.
Yes.
So racing, you talked a little bit about that. That's funny because I used to swim competitively too, and I do actually still miss it. But cycling, same thing. I wanted to get something that was like a competitive outlet, and cycling's been really, really good team sport. What got you into racing?
Yeah, so I actually started racing mountain bikes before I started racing road bikes. It must have been 2021, January maybe, was the first time that I guess they were allowed to have races again. And it was a mountain bike race that my husband got me out to do, a cross-country mountain bike race. I thought I was going to do terribly, but I actually ended up doing relatively well. And I got hooked on racing mountain bikes, but then I also wanted to try racing road bikes. But on the road, you really you want a team to race with and kind of someone to show you the ropes. And so that's how I first got introduced to my old team, Go Fast, which is also sponsored by InCycle, my new team, and really started racing with them, and having so many great women to look up to in the racing fields, and really getting to live out that competitive spirit again on the road bike.
Yeah, because there's more strategy involved in road racing, right?
Yes, especially in those crits. So much strategy. It's like chess on wheels, we like to say.
Chess on wheels. So how'd you get connected to RBC?
Yeah, so credit for that goes to Christian Cabral. We go way back. We met in middle school, went to high school together. And when I was getting acquainted with Go Fast, which is Christian's team, I met him again. I was like, I know this kid. I know him very well. And turns out he's still in Riverside, and I'm back in Riverside. So he told me about this Riverside Bicycle Club to come ride with them at night. And at first it was very intimidating riding at night with mostly men that I didn't know. It was a little sketchy, but I credit most. Yes, I now credit most of my fitness to RBC and chasing the men and becoming one of them, kind of. And yeah, thank you, Christian.
Shout out Christian. Also, thanks for that video clip of the lap that spiced up that intro video. You the man.
Yes.
So, favorite memory with RBC, chasing down the boys?
Yes. I think maybe my funniest or most memorable memory was when I was riding with the B group. It was a night ride, and we were kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Well, it was a neighborhood, but there weren't no major roads nearby. Of course, it was dark, cold, the usual RBC night ride.
Yeah.
And one of the guys who was tubeless got a flat, and it didn't seal, so we were going to put a tube in, but he couldn't get the valve core out, or the entire valve. He just couldn't get it out, and so we were standing there on the curb for probably a good 20 minutes trying to get it out. And then the house that we were standing next to, the lights gradually came on in the windows. We could see people peeking out, kind of looking at these weirdos outside of their house. And then a man comes out and is like, "What are you guys doing?" And we ended up asking him for a wrench. He opens up his garage and gives us a whole toolbox. And eventually we fixed the problem. But I think that still holds the record for the longest RBC flat in history.
In history.
Yes, in history, and her story.
Her story. All right. Longest flat of history. I'd say that's a pretty memorable. So tell me about your team.
Yes. So before the beginning of this season, which just started, I switched teams. I'm now on, we're the Encycle women's team, but we call ourselves the Mommies. Sounds better when my teammates say it. They have much more flair. Encycle used to have a men's and a women's team, so the women called themselves the Mommies. Now we actually just have a women's team, which gives us a lot more access to resources and a lot more visibility, which is great. And the main reason I switched to this team is that it is so women focused. On previous teams and really most teams that I've interacted with, the women are just kind of second rank. It's more about the men. It's the men's show, and then the women can also ride if they want to. Mm-hmm. This team, there's 2 former professional cyclists who started the team, and they're really about bringing up the next generation of female riders, kind of teaching us the reins and really having us follow in their footsteps if we want to, or as far as we want to. We don't all have to go pro. But it's really nice being able to race with women that you can look up to, and where you have a lot of room for growth and a lot of potential. And the resources that, most men's team have, we don't have as a women's team. So we're also very much about getting women on bicycles in general, whether it's just for fun or for racing. We do community rides with women, and we actually, there's a race series in it's like in the Long Beach area. It's called Eldo or El Dorado. And last year, for the first time, they put on a women's night. So this is a race that usually happens on weeknights. So I unfortunately have not been able to make it out. And a lot of people can't. So it's a smaller crowd. And because of that, there usually isn't enough women to have a separate women's field. So the women just have to race with the men. And what they did for the first time last year is having a women's night, so that they have just a field just for women and a field for men. And that really brings out a lot more women, because, it's very intimidating to race with men. Sure. Not because they're faster, but because they're not as safe as women. Let's be honest. They tend to be a little reckless on that testosterone. So we don't want to race with them. We want to have our own race. And so having more opportunities like that, and bringing women out to women's rides and women's races, and really encouraging women and making more of a safe place for them to ride and race, so that, we don't always have to ride and race with the men if we don't want to. So that's I would say our biggest mission. And this picture is of that women's night at Eldo out in Long Beach.
Very cool. All right. So, what's maybe a highlight that you've had with this team in particular?
Yeah, so very personal highlight. Not this last weekend, but the weekend before. That is when the footage was taken of the breakaway. So that was actually my first podium in a Pro 1-2-3 field, racing with my team. There's been a huge learning curve racing more tactically with the team. Crits are not just the strongest person doesn't always win a crit. There's a lot of thinking about it and a lot of team tactics. And so going into the race, we didn't have our strongest sprinter. So we knew that we probably weren't going to win the race out of a field sprint. And we had better chances with a breakaway. And so a breakaway happened. I was in it. It stuck. It ended up lapping the field, which made it a lot more complicated because apparently then they can race with us again and lead us out and such things. But it was really cool seeing how my teammates kind of blocked for me, meaning they kind of tried to slow down the main group so that the breakaway would stick. And then once we caught back up with them, they actually were able to lead me out, give me a little bit of rest on their wheels, and get me across that finish line in second place. So it was a great day for the whole team.
Yeah, I'd say that's quite a highlight, being your first podium and everything. And I guess I'll lead us to the next segue here is what are maybe some of the misconceptions of racing?
Yes. So I think a lot of people who ride are not into racing because they think it's ultra competitive. Everybody's going to be kind of mean and elbowing each other and not looking out for each other. But in my experience, that really hasn't been the case. We all get along really well, even with other teams. I mean, while we're racing, of course, we go at it and we have no mercy. But before and after the race, we're super encouraging. We try to learn from each other. It's really a very, very friendly atmosphere. It's not at all the kind of snappy, really ultra competitive atmosphere that a lot of people think it is. It's much more friendly. And I mean, at the end of the day, at least us, we're not the professionals. We're not there for a paycheck. We're there for fun and to go back to work the next day, right? So we try to keep each other safe and keep having fun and keep each other to that, and really also encourage each other.
Yeah, and I think so some of you guys may or may not know this too. So Philine, she's our A ride leader on Tuesday, Thursday nights. That's her there. And so I think a lot of the beauty of racing in general is, like you said, a lot of people, I feel like they feel like this is a one-man show when really there is a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of like, hey, I saw you from, last week. So while you're racing, you're in it and you are racing that person, because that's that competitive side. But when you're off of the field and it's like, hey, how are you doing? How are the kids? And you have that kind of connection with people who are also into that kind of competitive nature. And we've seen a couple of people like Israel, one of the other guys too, talk about some of the really positive experiences from racing, which has been really, really cool. So what are maybe some of your favorite products, things that have been like helpful for you while you're racing or just riding in general?
Yeah. So number one, everybody who rides with me knows that I'm a big fan of the bar bags, the burrito bags. I always have one. I don't like having a lot of stuff in my back pockets. I put my wallet, keys, base layer in there. So the one that I have currently, which I really love, is from Almost There. It's the compact one. So if you're looking for, something to have a lot of layers in, then you would go with a bigger one. But this one's really good just for your essentials. Unlike many other bags, when it's empty, this one's empty. It still holds its shape, which is really nice.
Yes.
And it just velcros onto your handlebars. And we actually have a code that you can use. So on Almost There, you can put in code capital M AMIS 20. So mommy's 20 for 20% off, which is really nice. So feel free to use that. on a kind of off the bike tangent, we all love coffee. So this is my favorite Corsa Pro coffee. They're all named after LA area group rights. So this one's Saddle Peak.
Cool.
They have a lot of medium roast. They also have a dark roast. It's delicious. It fuels your ride. So check out Corsa Pro. We have same capital M Mommies 10 for 10% off. So
Awesome.
just
Medium roast is my favorite. I love medium
roast. Yeah, it has the right amount of caffeine and flavor.
And for those of you guys watching, so those burrito bar bags, one of the big things I've had issues with is the ones that don't hold their shape. So that one,
they sag.
That arrow makes a really big difference. Like I didn't think I would notice it, and I have way too many bags. I'm not even going to admit to how many bags I got, but like those burrito bags like that hold their shape. If you're doing GMR, and you're really cooking, you're frying, like you're hot on the way up, and then you have to come down. Having a really small windbreaker in there is a lifesaver because you cool off really, really quick as you're descending the whole time. Okay, well, I think that is just about it. I do have a comment. Oh, dark roast for the win. Get out of here, Tim. It's medium roast, son. Medium roast. Yeah, everybody's like so preferenced on different kinds of coffee, but I know cycling, there's a ton of coffee things. And you know what? I'm looking at doing like a coffee and ride kind of thing where you get up to a peak and actually make coffee.
So you have to bring the coffee outside and the coffee maker?
Yeah, because I do bike packing, I have all that. So I have a stove and an AeroPress, which I know it's ridiculous, but I do. And it, it just fits in there and it's great. So, but I guess that's it. So I'm going to queue up the next session. Anybody have AeroPress makes amazing coffee? Yeah. So they make like a hiking bike packing one that's like really small. And I'll use like normal coffee like that, go up to Skyline, make myself some bougie coffee. I even brought hazelnut creamer and I made it all the way up there without any of them leaking in a burrito bag. So it was great. Well, thanks so much for coming out, Philine. And then some of you guys stay tuned. I just got a little quick session, and then you guys can ask comments about any products. If Philine wants to stay on, we can do comments for her too in just a second. So I got a quick, and Tim said, thanks. I got just a quick stinger, and then I'll be right back in about 28 seconds. So here we go. So obviously not your typical road bike. And I know my hands were shaking like bacon because I was preparing for this and I realized I hadn't ate anything. So like, I just needed to eat. So I don't have the products in my hands because Philine's way cooler than me. And the only stuff I got's on my bike. I don't got any extras. So if you've ever been, maybe I did. Maybe I had too much coffee. That's a good catch there, Sadiq. If you guys have ever been fighting the wind and your hands are really hurting because you're in the drops. So I just got back from Arizona doing a 200-mile ride and my bike weighed 65 pounds. And there's times I'm just trying to pedal the bike. And I spent a lot of time in the drops. So those little redshift grips I showed on that little stinger video, it makes a flat section. So when you're in the drops, your hands are on a flat platform. And that is so much nicer for your hands. So for me, that was like a really, really cool thing. Now the top piece that has that little bump, I don't know how many of you guys would probably use that. You can put your hands on it while you're getting really low and you don't have like aero bars. You can rest your arms. You'll see that if you ride with me. I do that sometimes. And then I guess the biggest thing for all of us roadies in general, I'm going to get to that, the cushy part. So If we're just talking bar tapes, because I do gravel and I'm in really rough stuff, rougher than just bad roads, I've had a little bit of an obsession with bar tapes. Envy bar tape, 3 millimeters. That's the magic number. I wouldn't say to go over because it gets all big and bulky, and I wouldn't go any under. So the enve bar tape, the only catch is it doesn't have like a bunch of fancy, colors. I think it only comes in gray. Now, the other one I used, the redshift, like I said, those little things when you get your bars wrapped, or if you wrap yourself, you basically just wrap the bars to those little plastic things and they just insert, they pull right on, and then you have a flat platform to put your hands. Now, they're not like super cushy per se, but because your hands are not just on your little bar where all that weight is being on just a little tiny bar, the weight is distributed across your whole hand. And so I would say, yeah, I would consider it cushy just because you're able to distribute your weight, and it feels softer, although the material is like kind of hard. But the redshift tape is probably too long for most normal road bars. But again, it's that magic number, the 3 millimeter. So I guess the big things I would say to suggest is give that a look. I don't have any special agreements or anything with Redshift, so I don't, got a discount. Unfortunately, I'll try to get you guys one next time. But just that little bar is pretty cheap. Just a little platform thing that goes on the bottom. And I would say really check that out. If you've ever been just trying to get home and your hands are killing you, then that's something worth checking out. And then enve bar tape, they make good stuff, but I think some of us are like, yeah, how much better could the bar tape be? Shout out to Todd Hayden, because when you're doing gravel, you're looking for really nice bar tape because your hands are taking a beating. So that was in the lab for this month. And each month I'm going to try to bring you guys a guest speaker. So, hey, if you know someone, please, give them my information and have them contact me. And then I'm also looking for beakers and a lab for a funny intro video to the lab section with me and Eric Lewis that I want to do. So, someone who's got beakers or lab coats, let me know. And I need to hit up Michelle because she's a chemistry teacher. So she's probably got some of that stuff. So until next time, when in doubt, pedal it out.